Alright, so we have 4 semi-finals this weekend, lads. 2 in Munster and 2 in Leinster. So, to keep up the historical bias towards Leinster on this show, we're going to go with Leinster first. It's the bigger province, Connell.
The best hurling province, yeah.
Best hurling province. It
Yeah,
doesn't have
no
the
doubt.
magic the Munster one does, but we have. Listen, there's All-Ireland contenders in both provinces. We're going to start with Leinster because there's at least 8,000 fans in Croke Park, Connell, which is a nice surprise.
No, it's great. It's well needed as well, and look, 8,000 is better than nothing at all, and eventually we're coming to the right end of things of this COVID situation, and hopefully as the year goes on there'll be more and more coming to it.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Canning could easily break King Henry's all-time record, Paddy, this weekend. He's 13 points off. He needs 14, and Joe's on the freeze against Dublin, where Galway would be expected, to win. If you're a betting man, you'd probably say he could be breaking this record this weekend.
I'd say so, yeah. I'd imagine he'll have a fairly good day out. I think Galway, as we'll be talking about, I suppose they're looking very, very good this year and very attacking. So I'd say they could be brought down a few times, and we don't know. He could be playing the full forward line yet. He was so good in the last game there, so you wouldn't back against him, and it'd be nice for him to get it out of the way, because I suppose with not much else to talk about in the media, this could be one of the big points he wants to just put it to bed.
Yeah, he scored 27,471 and Henry has scored 27,484. But Joe's done it in 60 championship games. Henry's done it in 71. This is just scoring off the charts completely, Connell.
Yeah, it's incredible scoring. I don't think he'll break it this weekend though.
You hope he won't.
No, look, it's incredible. And he's been getting massive scores since his debut. Everyone can remember one of his first games was a game against Cork. He's getting massive scores all the time.
It was 210 off the rock. I think he was only 18 or something.
Unbelievable. As a young lad coming in, if you got a score at all, you'd be nearly chuffed. But look, every game he's racking up massive scores, and look, credit to him. He's one of the best around, and his frees are excellent every single day. Which goes to show the amount of work that a fella like that must put in, and to keep doing it consistently year after year. Even though he takes a lot of abuse and he gets a lot of belts and everything, but he just seems to get on with it, and unbelievable scores there for the record. And I'm sure he'll do it this year anyway. It won't be this weekend, but he'll do it this year.
His highlights reel is something else. In 2008, that was as a 19-year-old. I think that was the year he scored 44% of Galway's entire scores that year in the championship as a 19-year-old. The analysis for a lot of years, Paddy, and this is a compliment to Galway now, is that they're not reliant on him the way they used to be. And if Joe was injured, you'd still see Galway as a huge force, and that hadn't been the case.
No, it hadn't been the case. I can actually remember one of his first matches was the league final against Tipperary, and he was 19, I suppose, saying there at the time. And he was throwing grown men out of the way. He scored a goal near the end of that match, and literally he threw 3 guys out of the way and got through for a goal. And just from the very start, how brilliant he was. But as you said, he was kind of like, their big white hope there for a long time, and much like Owen Kelly was before that. But by the end of his career, coming near the end of his career, he probably still has a few years left. Maybe he's inspired an awful lot of great players, and the Whelans and the Concannons. So, even if he is held, and I think it gives him more freedom these days. Even since they won the All-Ireland that year, they had a couple of great supporting cast with him. And he seems like a very, very free player, that there isn't the whole weight of the county on him. And I think that can only be good for him.
Yeah, the pressure. I remember saying on the show here, Galway need 2 Joes. They need one at full forward and they need another out, around the field. Yeah. It's not really the case now.
No, and no matter what you say, all of that talk about Joe, if Joe doesn't perform, Galway don't win. This kind of stuff was happening a lot back a number of years ago, and that seeps in. No matter what Joe would probably say out in the media, he obviously is hearing all of that stuff, so it doesn't help. I think as a young lad going in, that's nice, that's nice to know that I'm only a young lad and I can carry this Galway team. But when after a couple of years, and things aren't working out as he might have probably hoped in the early start of his career, that can be difficult, and that pressure is hard. And every single game, then he feels that he has to perform and he has to do everything right. And he has to put these magic moments together. But I think, as Paddy says now, that pressure is levelled across nearly a lot of lads there, 4 or 5 lads at least, and now he's just free to do what he does best is just go out and hurl, and he's playing really, really well this year again. So having that kind of freedom and bringing them to midfield, putting them to full forward, changing positions as well, freshens them up all the time, and it keeps defenders thinking. And I think it's great for him to have that flexibility in his game.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. He's a great maturity about him now. I know he's around a long time, but definitely listen to his interviews and watching him play, and there isn't that pressure on him to be shooting the lights out. So how do Dublin control this Galway attack, Paddy? Is it an impossible task? Like, we're looking at them, Conor Whelan could go to centre forward, Liam Rush wouldn't like that, Concannon could go there, Joe could be full forward, Conor Cooney could be out in the wing. How do you plan for Galway?
Well, the first thing is you're not going to control them all, and there definitely one or two of them have a good game. I do think you probably have to match up one or two of them. Conor Whelan, I always think if he gets going, then you have a really, really hard day at the office, because any ball winner like that, same Bonnermacher for Tip was kind of our version of that ball winner. If you can stop him at that source, then you have a bit more of a chance. I think he needs to be nailed down. I would say Galway, I'd love if he was full forward, because O'Donnell, I saw him the last day and he was absolutely outstanding. But he's not nearly like your perfect marker for Whelan. Now we'd see if they mark each other. He's as fast, he's as strong, his aggression is off the charts. So they do need to lock him down. I think Canning will hurl anyway. I wouldn't be as preoccupied with trying to put somebody on him, because I think he'll hurl and he'll be in and he'll be out of it and he'll do some lovely things regardless. But I think Concannon is the other one for me, that he's shown that he can be so reliable over the last couple of years. Like, it's very hard to pick out a poor match he's had. And again, like Whelan, he's not as strong as him, but when he gets the ball, he hits for goals, and that's when it pulls your defence all over the place and it rips holes in it. So for me, it's those two, and I think Dublin, though, they have one or two lads to mark him, as I said. Owen O'Donnell, great man marker, and then Cian O'Callaghan maybe on Concannon, and they could size up pretty well. But their style is so good now, Galway, that they can provide such ball into him that it is difficult anyway.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that. And Smith's a good man marker too, isn't it? Dublin have some good defenders. The problem with you when you go man for man, Connell, is that when Galway start rotating, you're bringing O'Donnell maybe somewhere he doesn't like, and you're bringing O'Callaghan although he can play on the wing. Do you get me? Like, should Dublin just, like Limerick do, stand in their positions and be confident to be able to mark who comes to them?
Look, they could do that, but I think on previous years and what I think they would do is, yes, O'Donnell will probably go on Whelan no matter where he goes.
Right.
If Whelan goes out centre forward, O'Donnell will go with him. I think there's a general consensus that O'Donnell has marked him a lot of times and he's done pretty well on him, and he's very physical with Whelan. It's very hard to tie him down all the time, but I think he's probably the best man for that. Concannon obviously is flying it. I think the best man for him would be Paddy Smith. I think because Paddy has the hurling, he's physical, he's well able to move around, and again, Paddy will be happy enough if Concannon goes out around the half forward line for a period of time. Paddy's happy enough to play around there, or to play that kind of free roam and roll instead of being stuck in the corner. Not sure they'd put Cian O'Callaghan. I don't think Cian O'Callaghan would have enough of the hurling. He'd be sticky enough maybe, but not enough of the hurling when he actually wins the possession going forward.
Right, if he goes out to the half back line.
Yeah. How do you contain the Galway forwards? Look, difficult question, but I presume they're going to try and play something similar to what Clare did the last day with John Conlon, as in with Liam Rush. They're going to obviously have him in that kind of pocket area, I presume, bring him back in midfield, or James Madden or Reem McBride to mark his guy.
Conor Burke.
Yeah, more than likely, and try and hold it as tight as possible and try and keep Liam in around that D spot, so Galway, when they start to run, that they're not going to be trying to get too easy in on goal, so it is difficult, but I think the one-on-one Dublin will be very confident getting on those kind of matchups. They'd be happy enough. It's just what they do going forward then is the big thing, and how much they're going to get out of the Galway backs, Dublin forwards, really. That's the big thing. Well,
that's the thing. Moving on to that, I suppose, Paddy, because while you're struggling to see how Dublin can contain the Galway attack, you can actually see how Galway can contain the Dublin attack, because they seem to have tailor-made players like McInerney on Crummy, like Fintan Burke on Donald Burke, like Dahi Burke on Ronan Hayes, and Pádraig Mannion on Sutcliffe. They seem to have a good kind of defender for the threats Dublin pose.
Yeah, they do, and the only one they mightn't. What I was looking at and I was thinking about is Mannion might play more as that free player if they're given a sweeper.
Oh yeah.
He kind of dictates how they play, but they'll definitely have somebody that will have to go after Sutcliffe. I thought his form the last day. I know Antrim were poor the last day, like obviously they were poor, but I thought his form was as up there, probably to the peak of before he kind of took that sabbatical. Geez, I thought he was electric the last day. The field and the running with the ball, his decision making was up to scratch and scoring. So Danny Sutcliffe will take an awful lot of mining, like, because you have to remember that he was in the top echelon of half forwards before he took his break from intercounty hurling. So that'll have to be done. But you see the problem the last days. I really thought Antrim were really poor. Like Dublin were way sharper than they had been in the league. Way sharper. Better style of hurling, quicker thinking, ball was in. But it's just Galway will put them under an awful lot more pressure around the field. And we talk about holding the Galway forwards. The best way of doing that is if Dublin can win the ball up front, get it, turn their men, win frees, and put the pressure back on Galway. And it has to start with the puck outs. They were able to win the puck outs the last day.
Yeah.
But I don't see Galway giving them that sort of oxygen early on.
5 clean puckouts for Sutcliffe. He probably wouldn't get them off Mannion. Mannion's very good in the air, but I do take Paddy's point. They might free up Mannion. It depends. Like it'll all play out.
Yeah, probably would have said the same 2 years ago when we played them in Parnell Park that we wouldn't have got that many puckouts, but we did. I think we got actually nearly up. I think close to 10. Clean puckouts off Galway that night. So, but
you probably won most.
Yeah, how many did you win?
And I'm not just saying
tell us your stats. Tell us your stats.
I don't know the stats.
Brought that one up.
Now look, the only worry I'd see for Dublin is the half back line. I think that is a pivotal line. I think they're going to seriously miss Shane Barrett. Shane Barrett's not around this year for his physicality and his pace. And they obviously will miss Crummy not being there. Will they bring in Sean Moran and put him in wing back? I'm not sure. So they're going to have an extra man. Can they deal with all that in the half back line? That's a key area for Galway, their half forward line. And if we can break that down, it'll go a long way. But again, going up front, I just think there comes a time when you nearly say to the players, now's the time you need to deliver. The likes of Hayes, Sullivan, you're getting your chance. Like you're playing against a top team, so now you've been doing it in club for years. For all of this, now's the time to go and do it. You're wanting to start. Now you're starting. Now you're playing pretty well. So let's see what you can do on the big day.
The other problem, obviously, with Dublin playing the sweeper, which they need to do, is the use of the ball. Now, apparently, I didn't see the Antrim game. They used it really, really well, Paddy, and they went through the lines and they went long. Going long is probably out of the question to Daithí Burke and Ronan Hayes. Like, even though Hayes is good in the air, but like, I mean, for me, he wouldn't be at that level. And then Galway will have a player mopping up. So, when you play a sweeper, that's fine. But what's your style of play to not have the sweeper on the other side shoot you in the foot?
Yeah, well, look, you're right. I actually think they'll have got a nice bit of confidence from the way they played the last day. I know, again, we'll say Antrim didn't perform well, and that's fine, but Dublin really were so quick onto breaks, and when they had it, they transferred it really quickly into space. So, and they didn't go overly long to Hayes either in full forward. They were playing it through the lines and popping it to the corners. And if I was Dublin management, what I would be saying there is Morrissey and Brennan, if they're the two cornerbacks on the day, they're good players, obviously, but they're inexperienced at the same time. And I suppose you'd be trying to play it to the corners more than you'd be playing it down on top of Hayes. And if it was going on Hayes, you'd be trying to say break it. So they certainly, again, have to move it to midfield, try and take on the tackle, create the overlap and pop it in. Because if they start lobbing balls into the Galway half back line, full back line, I think it'll be many will sweep that up all day. Whoever they have there will be a good quality hurler and will sweep that up all day. It could even be Aidan Hart, who's very good at that as well.
Yeah. So
it has to be broken through the lines. It has to be Crummy running with the ball. It has to be Sutcliffe running with the ball off the shoulder and pop it into midfield or take the score from range. But look, it is tough. But like we can't talk like Galway are unbeatable either. Like as Conal said, they had him a couple of years ago and were well able for him. I think they took a big step up against Antrim the last day compared to what I saw in the league. So I do think that there's more there from to gain from this match than maybe what we're thinking just from league form.
I think they won't be worried if it's two up, if Hayes and O'Sullivan are inside on their own, marking Burke and whoever else, because I think they'll back Hayes on his pace. Like, he's electric pace, and the fact that now it's gone to Croke Park, it'll probably suit Hayes even more, that they can get the ball into the corners either side of him, and he'll more than likely win that ball. And you know, he's 6'2" nearly, like, you know, big lad, well able to move. I think they'll fancy their chances on Burke if they get the ball in long, deep, avoid that half back line, and then with the runners coming through of Danny and Crummy and Burke coming through to help as that support. But I think in the Antrim game, though, the half-forward line were dropping way deep, and it's easy to do that maybe in Navan. You know, you've seen Danny picking up the ball around the half-back line and delivering a lovely ball, crossfield ball. That's not that easy to do in Croke Park, as well as to chase up and then support. That's the problem then, you know. So trying to get them to hold their position a little bit better and to support when that ball is gone, you make them runs in, and hopefully that you might get something off Hayes, or else Hayes is going to do damage and you're creating space for him.
I thought Hayes, because he was a big man, liked it down on top of him. He likes it in front of him, breaking out, does he as well?
I think he's confident, a young lad, that it doesn't matter where you put it to him, he just wants the ball in there, and if you give it to him high, he's well able to catch it. Like, he's really, really good in the air, but if you give it to him into space, and that's fine too, because he feel like that he's going to be able to burn you on the outside. So I wouldn't be getting bogged down and giving him any kind of Pacific ball. It's just hit the space for him and he'll get there. Get
it. What's your thoughts on Shane O'Neill, Paddy? Like, I mean, he's very hard to figure out. He a very intelligent man, obviously. He's a partner in a solicitor firm, and he gives nothing away in interviews, to the point where he'd bore you to tears, actually, just giving you. I've tried to get him on the show numerous times. I've been told, look, you'll get me at a media day, and that's pretty much the only time, you know, politely declining. He doesn't want any focus on himself at all. Like, he nearly reminds you of Jim Gavin in a little way, but you kind of get the sense off him that he's a very serious character that commands a lot of respect.
Yeah, I would say so. Look, I suppose I'm in North Tipperary, so I'm not too far from Limerick. He's been involved with a club in Tip as well. So what I'd hear back is very, very positive about him. Just what we know is like how well the Piercic have done when he was involved with them, how professional you would hear that he is. And I think gets on very, very well with players. You can see with Galway, he's changed their style. Micheál Donoghue had a certain style. It was quite simple. Used the big men that he had. But I think Shane O'Neill is definitely after bringing it to a different level. And I think, looking at how enthusiastic the Galway players are, they've bought seriously into it. You could the odd time hear murmurs in Galway about discontent and some players not happy. But the way they're playing, and he has his leaders down the middle, he has the Manions involved in the play, Joe Canning involved, Conor Whelan is his captain. So he is telling them, this is your team. And to me, he has them playing in a style that they all like. Because, okay, Galway, they have big men, but I used to enjoy marking big men if all it was high balls in. Big men are, you know, they need to get different types of ball to challenge the back line as well. I think that's what they're doing, and they're playing through the lines very, very well. But, of course, they always have that route one option if they want. So, look, for me, he looks very impressive. To even push Limerick a little bit in the All-Ireland semi-final last year, having really very little time, that was a great sign of him. And to change, I think they've changed a lot, you know, by this year now since he started. I think they've changed their style a lot, and in that short time frame, I think it's very impressive.
It is, and like, I mean, maybe this is a stupid thing to say, if hypothetical, but if this incredible Limerick team hadn't come along, you'd be looking at Galway winning 3 of the last 4 All-Irelands. Do you know?
Yeah. Well, they certainly would be far off it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like,
just on the Shane O'Neill, I think he looks like a real manager that you really want to play for. He's a real players man, and I love the fact that I still do, any manager that doesn't look for the limelight in the media, or it doesn't come out across and say it and silly and take the focus away from the players. It's always about the players, I think, and that gives you great confidence that he's not going to be spilling out anything to anybody, you know, outside of it. Because so many times in Galway over the years you hear little rumours of this and that. Like, there's nothing about Galway, and he never lets anything out. So I think that's great. Galvanises the squad even more. Yeah,
not ideal for me on this show, but look, we'll. I don't think they're going to worry too much about that. Kilkenny Wexford, lads, we'll move on to that one. And I was looking at this. There's only going to be 500 at this one, just to keep the inconsistency up. So there's 10% of the capacity in Croke Park. There's 500 at this one, which is way below 10% in Portlaoise. 10% would be 2,500, which you would have thought would be able to keep it consistent across all 4 matches. Wexford might be on one of their good years. So I saw a quote from Lee Chin saying, after last year, we're coming into this year motivated off the back of it, wanting to do ourselves justice. And then I was looking at Davies' time in charge of Wexford, Paddy, and in year one to beat Kilkenny down in Wexford Park, I was at that game, a huge occasion. They got to a Leinster final. Then in year two, they had a bad year. They didn't do much in the Leinster League, and they lost badly to Clare. Then in year three, they won Leinster, had a great year. Then in year four, they had a bad year. And now are we back in year five onto one of their on years?
Yeah, it's a couple of things if you're thinking in your head. Number one, is it that they're so tired from a good year? You hear the dog?
I hear him, yeah, go on.
It's the fucking postman, lads.
Look, I don't mind that, Lucia. Is there something a little bit funny about being interrupted like that? He stopped there now anyway, so you can just answer that question from where are they onto one of their good years?
I think that they should be. They played well the last day, I thought, now against Laois. Now, again, Laois like Antrim. It felt like nearly the occasion got to them. But definitely Wexford were way better than we'd seen in the league. Maybe a bit of a circling of the wagons there. But I think if you look at the years, they're good, they're bad. The good ones, I'd say, Davy has motivated them all year. It's such a tough year training-wise. And you have success. And number one, the mental strength it takes to keep going and going for another year with the same motivation, either physically for training so hard, and then mentally when people are saying how brilliant you are. Like, they won the Leinster final for the first time in, 15 or 16 years. And, they had the whole of Wexford clapping them on the back. Then they had the whole, could have won in All-Ireland. And there's a hangover from that. You see with Waterford the last day, the energy that they didn't have. Like, they couldn't get up for it at all. They got cleaned out. And I think you could say a lot about that with Wexford last year. A lot of similarities. And I think this year, possibly, you can't judge off the Laois game. No offence to it. You can't judge off of it last time. But it's certainly the signs, like Dublin, were way, way better.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very difficult to come back motivating. That's what professionals pretty much do. They're highly motivated, and there's loads of professional athletes and teams that don't motivate themselves that well.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes a team, maybe like Wexford, need to have a bad year, and that gives them the motivation the following year, rather than just always trying to be at that. Like, maybe I'd use the Dublin footballers, even the Limerick hurlers always seem to get a really high level of performance. Not every team can do that.
Well, I think when you see that year on, year off onto their fifth year, it's nearly very similar to when we had with Anthony Daly. One year we were good, next year we were really poor, and then we got good again. But I think it comes from you nearly need that motivation in the winter and on every training session to look back and say, well, lads, you were absolutely brutal last year, so
you're better than that.
Yeah, you're much better than that. If people are writing you off, nobody cares about Dublin anymore. Nobody cares about Wexford. So let's go out and show everyone. And that's what you use in every single game and every training session. Even if you drop a ball or anything, Daly used to be on our case the following year. But also, if you were to look at then, why doesn't that happen to the Limericks? Why doesn't that happen to like the Kilkenny when they were successful, or the Dublin footballers? I think the big thing is because they don't have a massive panel. Like, if you have a really strong panel, if you're not playing well, someone will come out and someone else is in.
That's your motivation.
That's
losing
your motivation.
Your place.
Yeah. So that's why the Dublin team are so successful, and I would probably maybe suggest that's why Wexford they're always looking to bring in these 2 or 3 new lads, and they don't really ever seem to find enough. They probably have their 20 that Davy knows that he can go to war with, but after that he'd probably struggle, and that seeps down to the team itself. So they know that there's 5 or 6 or maybe 8 or 10 lads that are probably nearly always going to start. No matter nearly what happens to a degree, you might get taken off, but you'll be playing the next day. So, but if you have that where the squad is really, really strong and there's lads pushing each other all the time, and if you don't perform, well, you're not going to be playing. And if you don't perform in the training sessions in between those games, you mightn't be on the 24. So then you need to really book up and perform every single time, and that helps drive the team forward, and that's ultimately what makes you successful then.
So that's a fair point, Paddy. Small panels maybe need to have a bad year to find a motivation from somewhere, especially if they're coming off a good year. And the big panels like Limerick, like the Dublin footballers, like Kerry, you could list them all out. You're just shitting it that you're going to lose your place, so you can never switch off or have a bad year.
No, and I think your top players are a lot of time are top players. The Tommy Walsh, the Henry Shefflins, who are never ever going to get dropped. Keane Lynch's, these guys, they have that fire in them.
Yeah.
But it's those guys beneath them. They're always on their toes. They're always on their toes, that they'll either get taken off, that they'll be dropped off the team. And now when there's only, I think, 24 talking for a match, I remember it even near the end of when I was playing, it was horrible. That if I don't perform well, I'm going to be left off the panel on the day that wins the All-Ireland. And I think it really just comes around to that. They want to have some bit of taste of success, because the Limerick right now, they believe they're the best. And everyone believes they have to make hay while the sun shines. And they think they have the best of fitness, the best of hurling. So they're all so hungry to be involved, because they know they have such a good chance to win an All-Ireland every year, where I think some teams, they don't know if they're going to be good enough. It's like another slog, and are we going to win it? Are we not going to be able to win it? So it's probably, I think it's very, very hard to keep it up all the time, especially in hurling. I'd love to hear Connell's thoughts on that. And that, to me, I find hurling sometimes very mentally draining when every single ball is contested, every break, you have to be alive for everything. Whereas sometimes in other sports, I don't know, I'd love to hear a football person's thoughts on that. Whereas sometimes you can go through a match and kind of get easier passes and move it on, and not necessarily get involved in having to worry about every break of the ball and every twist and turn work rate wise.
I'm sure just on that point, you play Gaelic football, if you're in the full forward line, you can relax. In hurling, you can never relax because the ball could go the whole length of the field.
Yeah.
I always remember playing rugby when I was younger and going, Jesus, this is a great game. You'd be standing around doing nothing as there's a scrum. You'd never get tired because there's so many breaks in the play. I've never played hurling. I presume you can, while there might be more running in Gaelic football, you can never switch off in hurling.
Yeah, it's true. You can definitely switch off in the football, albeit you might have to kind of run along with your marker, but you're not really switched on that, the ball is miles away. Like, this lad's running, you could nearly let the lad off and let him run a few times, because the ball isn't going to be kicked the whole length of the field. But in hurling, probably a little bit different, yeah. You do have to be switched on all the time. And I don't know, I probably would see that as a kind of a never really thought of it too much, but it's like a mental challenge. I would hate to think that my man is ever going to get the better of me in anything, whether that's walking over there and I want to walk over and he steps across. I'm not allowing that. So whether that's waiting for the ball to come up or whatever it is, I would have enjoyed. I enjoy that kind of a challenge. Maybe it's a mental challenge. It could be the physical end of it. I don't know, but I always would enjoy that. And yes, you have to be switched on all the time, and I would enjoy that. The fact that I'm switched on and my marker maybe isn't, because I'm anticipating that we've already talked about it before, that the full back line may hit this long, so I know I need to be moving in a certain direction. And yeah, I never really thought about it too much until he actually brought it up. But yeah, it's definitely different in the two different sports, in hurling and football. You can't really switch off too much in hurling, and you hear that all the time from people rolling into the line. Not to switch off no matter where you are. So.
Yeah. Maybe you can a bit more with all this short passing that's come into hurling, but we're not going to start giving out about that, Paddy. What are Kilkenny going to do here? They know Wexford are playing a sweeper. Who do Wexford play a sweeper? Is it Pádraig Walsh? Because the sweeper has to give Wexford a problem. Because I often see, Wexford play a sweeper, they play Kevin Foley, he defends any attacks, and then the opposition play a sweeper that just stands in front of the full-back line. So immediately, tactically, Wexford have the upper hand. When are Kilkenny going to say, I'll see your Kevin Foley and I'll raise you Pádraig Walsh? And Pádraig Walsh, go forward whenever you can.
I would say, I'd say what you're saying will happen. I think Cody brought in new coach this year, Conor Phelan, who'll be very forward thinking. I think we saw even the first game of the league this year, Dublin, I think, played Kilkenny, and Pádraig Walsh was playing that sweeper role, and he was bombing forward as much as any other midfielder. So I do think they realise, and more so, that they're committing to playing a slightly altered version of what they do. I think they're trying to play it at least to midfield before they whack the ball in. Now, the big thing is, can Wexford make them rethink that? Can they give them doubts in their mind that the Kilkenny guys get turned over a few times and just say, Cody just tells them to start lashing it long, and I think that would really suit Wexford. But to me, Kilkenny have to change a slight bit, especially against Wexford, because Wexford are actually confident against Kilkenny for the last few years. They feel like Kilkenny aren't able to deal with Davies' tactics. And a lot of the time they haven't. And I think I often go back to 2019. I think that's why Wexford really found it hard to get over that semi-final loss to Tip, because they kind of had the hoodoo over Kilkenny, the way they played. And I just didn't think they were going to let that final pass without really giving them a good shot. So it'll be interesting to see, but definitely Pádraig Walsh be bombing forward from the half back line. Actually, I really fancy Kilkenny to play well and commit to it this weekend.
Yeah, they definitely will. Here's the thing, because I talked to Paul Murphy on the show recently about this, and he said absolutely not would you ever play your sweeper up on Kevin Foley and go 5 versus 5 and 7 versus 7. He says there's too much space. That's not something you do. And Cheddar said it after the Laois match. He said that would be madness. And I always remember in the 2007 Leinster final, Conall, I'm sure I've mentioned it on the show before, is that we were playing against you and we used the sweeper and we're going well. I think we're 3 or 4 points up, and you pushed Brian Cullen up on our sweeper, and you scored 2 goals really quickly. You took our sweeper out of it, and I always thought to myself, what a brilliant move that was. It really rattled us because we were planning on this. And I remember us doing it in a county final a couple of years later with Portlaoise, saying we have to move Zach Toohey up on the sweeper, and it worked brilliantly that day as well. Now is hurling different? That this is madness in hurling. I know the 5 versus 5 would be a bit more space to have to deal with, but would no hurling team just try it?
Well, I'll give you an example now. 2 years ago when we played Wexford in Parnell Park, and obviously Wexford taxis were pretty much the same then. Coming into, we obviously had meetings and we're talking about it and said, Wexford are going to play a man back. What are we going to do? So the management's idea was, we'll let them and we'll play a spare man and we'll battle it out like that. So I think a lot of us disagreed, and we said, actually, we're confident in our backs to go 5 on 5. I'm happy if we push up and we play 6 forwards. And what will Wexford do then? And it was thought, great, okay, everyone's
play
happy.
7 forwards.
Play 7 forwards, yeah. Everyone's happy. I was delighted to have an extra man on the forwards as well if they were going to drop it down. But just before the ball was thrown in, Matty totally went against everything and just and said, no, that's not happening.
Really?
Didn't tell anyone. And then all of a sudden, we were wondering who's marking your man, and Wexford went 3 or 4 points up, and that's probably a lot of the reason why we didn't get that result. We were lucky to get a result, a draw,
wasn't it?
free, and
that's bizarre. He decided it himself just
in the last minute. It was like, and then look, that obviously took us a while to get back to figure out trying to get lads up and mark and trying to get structure right again, but. That day we were all gung ho to do it, except it was just pulled on us in the last second. So I would be very keen to do that. I think if you have good backs and you have lads that are pacey enough and are confident enough to play like that and play from the front, why not? Like I just don't like, and you're going to have a man up in the forward. So a lot of times, if you get as a defender, then you get the ball. Just hit it, like just get it up there, and we'll worry about it. You know? So
I don't know, Paddy. Like, I mean, what's your thoughts on this? Because it's at the end of the day, you can go 5 versus 5 on the other side, but you can drop a midfielder back like you usually do, you know, and maybe help them out a little bit. I just think if you were to go into a game against Wexford and you know they have Kevin Foley, like even if you did it for the first 10 minutes and you have Davy scratching his head, what will we do? You know, and force them into a change, or like, am I overthinking the tactical side of it?
No, I don't think you're overthinking it, because I think there will have to be a serious talk going forward for some teams, because if you are struggling with a team that plays that style and they're very, very good at it, you say, well, hold on, what's the point in us just playing it safe? But it will take one team to actually, as Conor was saying there, they had decided to do it. So it would have taken that one team to do it once and really bamboozle the opposition team, and then everyone else will probably get the bravery. Like, I could see pros to it. The pros to it from a back's point of view is that, right, well, if they don't have a spare man back there and it's going to be quite congested, their clearances should be really, really under pressure. And as a back, that's all I've talked about before. That's all I want is a pressurised clearance. And I'm fairly certain I'm going to be able to, nullify my man fairly well. The problem with it is you're hitting the ball, like as a forward, you want space. Now, maybe Conor doesn't, because he's good to win primary ball, but a lot of forwards want space. They want space to move. They want space to come to get it out in the open. And you'll probably get a lot less of that. Now, I take the point, you can bring guys in and out, but it's going to condense it slightly. So then, even if you win it, trying to break the lines, you have more backs back there. But I know it gives you more people up there, but I've seen it, like, when I played club hurling first with start back mid-2000s, we would have maybe shoved the guy up the field to mark a sweep or a third midfielder. And you're very open your back line, and they seem to be really congested. So, look, there's pros, there's cons. I would love to see it done. And it probably will have to be done to counteract what's going on, maybe from a Limerick point of view or whoever's dominant a specific time.
Yeah, it'd definitely be worth seeing. Like, we're not saying it'll work. It might work one day, it might not work another day. It's like, but nobody's
trying
trying it.
a mix of it. Like, so you're bringing a lad up and then letting him come back again and come up again and try and mark. So it's kind of a mix of it is probably where someone will try it eventually. But I know we've talked about it at club before when teams drop back. I think it's definitely going markable, because I think it's the only way to stop a team from doing that and trying to start off so negative, and then as soon as you get momentum, then they'll have to change it. Like, so
yeah,
that'd be my thoughts.
If you had a really powerful team, at Limerick, I think a Limerick could do it, because they'd squash them so far back, and their backs would, they can do it with only 6 forwards against the sweeper.
Yeah,
imagine what they do with 7 forwards against the sweeper.
Well, that's it. Yeah. And if Limerick went with 5 forwards or 5 backs versus 5 forwards, Hannon would let his man off and he'd still cover.
Yeah.
You can still cover. You're not leaving 5 versus 5. Like a.
You're still guarding the goal and guarding the D. Okay, you may let your man out a little bit around the 45, but you're still sitting back a little bit. Yeah, I think you won't be leaking goals.
Come here, did you pull Matty up? I know. See, Matty in his first year would have come in with a huge reputation, so you're probably afraid to say, "Here, buddy, what were you doing there? What happened? What about our agreement?"
I won't go into it, but we weren't afraid anyway.
So right, okay. So he explained his reasons behind it, did he?
Well, we'll move on there now. Yeah.
We'll move on to Munster, so we'll come back after the break. Alright, so lads, the Munster semi-finals. We're going to start with Limerick versus Cork. It's at 7 o'clock on Saturday night on Sky. There'll be 2,400 fans at this. This is the funny thing about this. This is a pilot as a test for the return of large sporting venues. So they're using this as a pilot, but they're putting more in Croke Park, which is not a pilot. So, again, random kind of crowds. But look, again, it's good we're saying the same thing every time. It's good to have some sort of fans there to create an atmosphere. Mark Coleman was talking in the media. He was probably at a media day last week, and he said, "We probably learned more from the Limerick and Galway games than we did in the previous 3. Despite losing them, we're still happy with where we are and the learnings we can take of them." So what learnings did they take, Conall? My big 2 are, how are you going to fix Mark Coleman versus Cian Lynch, because Cian Lynch destroyed him, and how are you going to fix your puck outs? Yeah. So we start off with the Cian Lynch versus Coleman. How did they fix that?
How do they fix it?
Yeah. Do you move Coleman to the wing? Do you put someone else centre back? Like, do you bring back a sweeper to mark Cian Lynch?
Yeah, very difficult. Like, there's so many questions coming into this game, and obviously this is a major one. And then the other one is, do Cork play well when they drop a man back? I'm not sure. I don't know.
It's in my head they don't. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago they tried it and they got a fierce pushback because it didn't work. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, well, it's a couple of times they have got a bit of a pushback on it, but I'm not sure. Like, first of all, Cian Lynch will have to be marked. You can't just sit back and let him off. So whether he goes with him or he gets someone else to do it and he drops back, I'm not 100% sure. But it didn't work the last day for them anyway. And yes, he's right in saying that they have learned. Well, I hope they've learned a lot from that Limerick League game, because Limerick seemed to put up a huge amount of pressure on their puck outs. Cork didn't change the way that they were doing it. So what will they do this time? They'll have to bring something different to it. What happens if Limerick don't put the pressure on and they let them have the ball and they let them come out and then they squeeze them? So there's, or they try and do a mix of both. Obviously then the puck outs is a huge thing for Cork, but there's no way they're going to stick with what they did in the league game. They're going to have a couple of plan B, plan C, plan D. They're going to try and run. You'd like to think that they try and run the Limerick half-back line as much as possible. When they bring back, the Cadigan, Harnedy and Kingston, these kind of guys that have the legs to run around and to do that. But there's so many questions. It's very hard to have the answers. But for me, I'd probably stick him on Cian Lynch again.
Coleman.
Yeah, I think I would.
When you see your talisman like Coleman, your best distributor, following a lad and getting destroyed.
Yeah, but if it was me and someone got the better of me the first day, I'd be saying, give me another chance there, because it's not going to happen again, and I make sure it's not going to happen. So, right. And if that's the kind of attitude that they want to go with, then I think that's a positive for Cork. If he can get it on top of Keane, which is very, very difficult anyway. But I think if he can break even with him, that would be a positive.
Yeah, no, it definitely. Like, my thoughts, it's like we're obviously Dublin and Wexford play a sweeper, so we're talking about sweepers a lot. Cork don't. And I think Cork's style of play is the one team in the country that a sweeper would suit them perfectly, because you play Colm Spillane or someone, I'm not sure if Colm Spillane is back fully fit, but someone like him, corner forward, bring him back, Mark Keane Lynch, leave Mark Coleman, who's your best passer, who's your best man on the ball, leave him as your spare man. Mark Coleman then is a spare man for puck outs, so you have an extra body down there for a short puck out, which Cork like. And Cork's style of play is a very possession style of play, Paddy, where they'll never drive it down on the sweeper at the other end. They're made for a sweeper.
Yeah, I think you could be a special advisor yourself if you don't already now. But I think it doesn't sound like a bad thing in a nutshell. I know what Colin is saying there. When you do get beaten by another fella, you want another rattle at him, really. But I do think they'll have to play some sort of sweeper. I think even if you're just to look at them physically, they're trying to implement young players, and physically at the minute, I think Limerick overawed them in that league game. They really, left their mark on them. And I would certainly early on see how the game is going. Right, we're not conceding too much around the middle of the field. We're not letting them run through us. So somebody's on Keane Lynch. They're going to follow him, annoy him, and see does that break up their play a little bit. But look, we know the other players they have even in their half forward line, so they will cause problems. But like as you were saying, Coleman to me is more of a ball player. I don't think he's ever the most physical. He's not brilliant in the air opposing puck outs. He's at his best when he can pick hand passes up or pick breaking ball up and go forward with him and pick out the good players they have around the middle of the field, which they have. They have a number of good players. So I would probably try and play him not as a very deep sweeper, but as a kind of a nearly around the half centre back area and moving forward. Because I think at the end of the day, if you just sit your sweeper back and try and play balls out of the fence to the half forward line against Limerick, I think you're in trouble. You have to run it out a bit, create the overlap, and then ping balls in where it's still a challenge to get scores. But they learned a lot from that first game, but learning after 17 minutes and then saying, right, we have the antidote now, it's very, very hard to see.
Yeah, the whole thing is, like, a lot of the time, even they were winning the short puck outs, Connell. Like, I mean, it wasn't winning the short puck outs was the problem. It's what happened afterwards, where Limerick were just setting on them, and maybe Coleman being the spare man could come in behind the man that won it, and just give it.
Possibly. I know probably when the cornerbacks are when they're winning that short puck and they look up and they don't see any red jerseys making themselves available and they just see green. It's a worrying position to be in when you have that ball, because you're not sure what to do. Do you give it back to the keeper again, or do you go across, and then all of a sudden you're getting swamped by lads? So it is very difficult. But I think Cork, he's probably talking about the positives. Like, they have to take a positive out of it, that they created 4 or 5 really good goal opportunities against Limerick, and they've been doing that all of the league, Cork. So, and I think for Cork to beat Limerick on the weekend, they're going to need to get 2 to 3, 4 goals, because they're not going to be able to outscore them, I think, on a kind of a shootout, and they would probably take confidence that they probably didn't have their so-called, let's say, top main lads playing that day in the league, and they still created those 4 or 5 goal chances. So I think they'll think to themselves, well, if we had even taken 2 or 3 of those, we would have been the scoreline would have been totally different, and we wouldn't be really highlighting the fact that Keane Lynch was getting on top, and they were winning these puck outs. It wouldn't have been a huge deal because the scoreline would have been obviously down. But I think they'll definitely go after that because it seems to be what works for Cork.
On the puck outs, Paddy, is the reason they're going short is they don't have ball winners, and we know all this. And Limerick half back line are brilliant in the air. If the short one's not working, what's their long option? Like, is Dalton and DC coming out to the half forward line for puck outs an option? What do Cork do for a long puck out?
To me, the idea of a long puck out straight into a guy's hand, I think that worked a lot more maybe like 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think defences are set up a lot better. They're not going to bite on a guy running into no man's land and leave their space open behind him. So, but I do think they're going to have to open patches of grass to get the ball into, even if it's not a direct ball. So, like, I often thought, get 2 of your fast players and just get a patch of the space open somewhere and get the goalie to puck it down into that area, not onto the grass, but that they're at least able to attack it at a lower level, not to be standing. Geez, if the Cork forwards have to stand under puck outs with Burns, with Hayes, with Hannon. I guess that's not going to work for them, especially if they're playing a sweeper. So it has to be some sort of movement, nearly in a way format that they bring a few of them left and then they come over right and at least contest it where they get a 60-40 chance at the puck out. For me, that's a huge thing. I think if you look at Donald O'Grady, he was an innovator in puck outs. He was probably one of the first person that put a proper shape on offensive puck outs with Donald. So I'd be shocked if we didn't see something. And even if they want to go short, no problem. But they've just learned, and I think they have to go short at times, but they have to learn that only certain guys are able to play that short puck out and that they have to do it a bit more high percentage stuff. It's an inexperienced goalkeeper against really, adept forwards in Limerick, and that they can't play silly ones, and that maybe they'll have to get it from there and push it a bit further up the field afterwards, especially early on. So I do see them doing a little bit short, a little bit long, but they can't just stand under the puck outs and let these Limerick lads have free rein.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and we know that Limerick won't follow you if you make that decoy run. They're staying in their position. So can you not use that tactic against them by saying, right, we're going to go to Harnedy in the number 10 position, but we know Hannon won't follow Kingston, for example, and we know Diarmaid Burns won't follow Cadigan, just for an example. So why don't Kingston and Cadigan run over to that breaking ball in front of Harnedy, leave their men, they won't follow them, and have it, have it knocked down, numbers, and kind of swarm an area. Because like when you think tactically, zonal messes up making room, but there has to be something to mess up zonal, and you have to be thinking, what is that? And maybe Donald O'Grady can figure that out.
Yeah, possibly. Like I think a mixture of. They will go short and they will go medium to long. They're not going to launch them down. Like that would be the silly thing to do, obviously, and look for the space for the lads to be running into. Maybe they're going to bring out the corner forward and get those numbers. But yeah, I think getting numbers on the breaks is going to be massive, and for those balls that are being pinged into space. So the midfielders will be well tuned in, and even the corner forwards will know, as well as the half forwards, where these balls are going with certain signals, and they're going to try and get to that area to try and win that. And I think they probably will admit that they won't win every single ball, but at least they're going to try and change it up and get Limerick thinking that if we lose one here, well, now we can go short and we can move it around and we can get it down the other side then fairly quickly. So
you could have Hannon and Burns saying, here, John, he's going over there to win the break. What do? I'll follow him. Right, now we have space on this, or whatever. But like, is hurling like Gaelic football where if you're going out to fetch with a good fetcher, he'll outfetch you. But if you're going to have to break off a good fetcher, you should be able to break most of them off him. Like, can you spoil a good? Can you get that ball to the ground? Most hurlers.
Yeah, you definitely can. If you have it in your mind that you're not going to, and it's very difficult. If you're marking a good catcher and you consider yourself a good catcher, the ball is there, and you're like, I'll just go for it. I can get it, and then Everton's grand. Nobody will ever say it. But if you don't win that one, that's the problem. You have to be so disciplined and to wait, and as soon as you think he's going to put up his hand, just tap it down and get it to the ground. Even though you want to win it, but you know that there's other lads coming in behind you, midfielders or someone from behind, a corner forward. It's very disciplined to do that and to keep doing that. But I think for Cork to get any success off the puck, they'll need that.
Yeah, because I suppose like egos with midfielders who see themselves as good fetchers. Like, I'm sure, Conall, you were a good fetcher. You wouldn't like that, but I'm sure the Cork forwards who know their limitations would easily get it to the ground, and when it goes to the ground, make sure you have more bodies around the ball on the ground than Limerick have.
Yeah, I think, and that's, people talk about tactics, and that is a tactic. People think, no, that's only a small little thing. That is a tactic. Like, that can really break up the play, and I've done it at club level. Like, we've played against good teams in the air, and I said, if all of us in the backs knock the ball to the ground, you're completely taking away what their real strength is. So that would be me, and it takes a lot of humility and a lot of team play and self-awareness to say, this is actually the best thing for the team. And look, if I've played the forwards, I've played in the backs, if I'm on a really good striker in the air, if I'm a Cork forward, I'm not turning my back to my man, I'm going sideways into my man, backwards, and put my arm up, just holding him there and just tapping the ball down. So Conall hadn't to do it too many times, but that would be my style of doing it. I come in at the last minute and just give him that shove and make sure that ball hits the grass. And I think 9 times out of 10 you will get the ball to hit the grass if you go in like that. And at least then you're saying, well, we know they're not going to rampage forward straight away, which is a huge problem playing Limerick.
And I think if you're going with that attitude to say, right, if the ball is coming on top of me, I'm going to break it to the ground, people know how to run it. Your other option is to let the ball go through altogether,
Go past
So
you.
say, I'm not going up to catch it, and all around us know that I'm not going to catch it. The puck out is coming, so it's either going dropping at my feet or it's going into the corner forward. So the corner forward is on his toes. So when that ball is pucked, he's gone. So
and how hard is that to do to get it to beat you?
It's not that. It's
just a nudge.
It depends on the position of the fella you're marking, you know. So that's why you can't rely on one or the other. So if you find that you're out of position and you won't be able to get to that break, but you'll be able to make sure that the ball, so you can pull that fraction a little bit earlier to make sure that you're swinging and you're swinging over him, and it's not really connecting with him, but you're making sure that he's not going to be able to intercept the ball in any way, and the ball is gone, and the puck has to be at a nice height and a good pace coming at you, you know, so you can let it fly in, and the corner forward is gone. He knows this is happening, so he's out in front and got it, and all of a sudden he has possession in around maybe the 45 or inside. And that's another opportunity for Cork to make something.
Right. So, like, I mean, this is it. The tactic is we're spiraling in the half forward line. Corner forwards be alive. We need two men on the breaking ball. The call with the scratch your nose with this hand and it's going to the other side. Whatever little signals you want. And there you go. We're a spiraling team, and that's it.
Well, it seems very technical, but it's not really. Like you're either going short and you're trying to work it out, or you're going to go pretty much long into space, where Paddy says to a fella that's running like a hardy, that's running into space, if the keeper sees it, the space, and he sees the run, or else it's been the same thing. You're hitting that kind of area a little bit higher with a bit more pace, and you're either going to break it to the ground or it's going in behind, and they're the kind of different options. And you're not reinventing the wheel by doing this. A lot of teams doing this. It's just very difficult. I think it's really disciplined for a person not to go and catch that ball, because it's really, really hard. The ball is right there, and you're thinking, you mightn't feel your man, he mightn't be that close to you, but as soon as you go to put your hand up, next thing he has his hand and it's gone, and then you're like, what did we talk about in this, you know? So it is difficult.
Well, that's it. In Gaelic football it's just midfielders you see with this, but in hurling it's midfielders, half back lines, half forward lines, all have that fetching, you know. There's way more that have that whole thing.
So for the puck outs, everyone has to be switched on. So if it's my puck out, the half back line on say the number 5 will need to know, the number 10 needs to know, the midfielders need to know, and the corner forward needs to know. So all of that side of the pitch need to know whatever that call is, and they all need to be tuned in order to win it. Yeah,
it's a good one. Final one on Cork, I suppose the good weather. Like I maybe I'm being harsh on Cork, but they are a good weather team. They play lovely fast, quick through the hand. The ball, it's better when it's dry. It's better when the ground is dry. They're a fast running team. You know, that is something in their favour now, and all those things suit Limerick too, I suppose, Paddy.
Yeah, but I tell you, a great game that sums that up is 2017. They played Tip and Thurles, and the sun was splitting the rocks in the first half, and Tip were all Ireland champions. And I think I think Cork were up by 8 or 10 points in the first half. The rain absolutely bucketed down in the second half, and Tip came back and drew the game with them. And so I think that really said in a nutshell how dangerous they are. They always have great skill. They're always athletic. It's like a lot of places with big picks. You get a lot of great athletes, and it's just such an advantage. And they're usually so fast. So look, they have that in their armour, but unfortunately, Limerick are good in the wet, the rain, the snow, anything lightning. I'd say if it came to be good in it. So that's the only problem they have with it this weekend.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. All right, last one, lads, is Tipperary and Clare. This is in the Gaelic grounds at 4:15 on Sunday. There's only 500 at this one, so again. I don't want to say any more about that. There's 300 more. It was brought forward from Monday to Sunday to allow those extra 300 go to the match. So, like, I mean, Liam Sheedy, he's getting a bit pissed off with this, Paddy, being asked about the Owl Lads all the time. Like, I mean, he's saying, he's right on this. And I suppose there is a perception that he's very loyal to the 2010 team. And there was even speculation in his first year that he might change things around. And he's in his third year and he's still not changing around. And I'm sure he's been asked about this the whole time. And he was fairly strong on this. He says the guy that starts, whether he's 21 or 31 or whatever age he is, that will be based on the data I have seen over the last number of months, right in front of my eyes. Now listen to the way he's talking, right in front of my eyes. And that's what allows me sleep very easily at night, to be honest with you. See, he's getting annoyed about this. He says, I'm getting to see every one of my panel in close situations, in 1v1, 2v2, 3v3. And ultimately, that's what I'll judge my team on. Now, we spoke last Thursday, or on Monday, I think it was, Conal, about old players. And, you know, if you're better, I think it might have been on the football show, actually, if you're better, it should come down to who's the best player, not age, is pretty much the point that we were making, Paddy. So you can see Liam Sheedy starting to get a little bit frustrated by this. He's seeing this at training. Everybody else on the outside is just looking at a number on a piece of paper and going, he's 32, he's a lot of mileage on his clock, and he's 21.
Yeah, well, I agree with it. In the main, I agree with it. And especially if you look at the hurlers, prospects of hurler of the year, a lot of them for the last 2 years. You've your Shamie Callans, TJ Reeds, Pat Horgans, Brendan Maher performed very well. Obviously, Paddy, they got All-Stars a couple of years ago. I know it's 2 years ago, all right, so you can't say it's another year or so. But like, if you are good enough, you should be starting. And what people don't realise is the experience is so vital. Number one, just your temperament coming into a match where you can treat it as a normal match. But number two, all the scenarios you've seen within those games. And like, to my mind, I often say to people, they say you should be giving youth a chance. You should get a chance. Yeah, when they earn it, they get a chance.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have your shopping trolley and it's my going out. I get to go up next. No, it's not like that. Liam Sheedy used to always say to us, you have a chance every night in training. That's one thing I can really remember is you have an opportunity every night in training to get on this team, and that's it. And like, I mean, there's no under 21 that's come on, or any Tipperary player that's come on to the team in the last couple of years that I said, geez, he's getting hard done by. How isn't he getting more game time? When you get in, you have to do something with the jersey, or it's not your jersey anymore. So not many have. They're looking for players. Let's be honest, Tipperary are looking for young, upcoming, vibrant players, and they just haven't really set the world alight yet. And I think it's as simple as that. And when you've these lads with 3 All-Irelands who are hungry to play, big competitors, I'd say let them have at it until somebody comes along that's a bit better.
I made the point on it was the football show, I'm getting confused between the two, and I used the example of Dublin. I was slagging Alan Brogan off how Kieran Kilkenny retired him, but Kieran Kilkenny is one of the all-time greats in the making, and Alan was as well. But you can understand that you can't hold back one of the all-time greats for another great. But if the young player isn't an all-time great, and he's not as good as the older player, the idea that you might, discriminate against the old player based on his age.
Yeah, well, you're not really holding back. If a lad is good enough, he's going to play. So in the case of, you're talking about Alan Brogan and Kieran Kilkenny, I didn't see retired Alan Brogan, to a degree. Like,
I know injuries retired Alan. I was only slagging him. But you understand.
But I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying my point is that, like, if a guy is 33 or 34 and he's still playing really well, and a young lad of 18 or 19 is absolutely shooting the lights out, well, it's not a young versus old. I think you can probably fit them into the team if
both of them.
Yeah, if they're good enough, then you might be able to switch things around. But ultimately, yeah, if there's a really good young guy and he's doing everything in training, and you give him a couple of chances coming off the bench or whatever, and he's playing really well, yeah, then you're going to play him. But if it's a 50-50 or a 60-40, and some selectors will say, oh, look, he's a young lad, let's put him on and give him experience, it's for next year or the year after, like, I think that's all bullshit. Like, I think there's no tomorrow. Like, today is what counts. I don't see in
championship hurling.
In championship hurling, exactly. Yeah, I don't see any benefit of in hope that this lad is going to perform today, and let's give him another chance. If that was a guy in his 30s and he didn't play well, he's finished. Oh no, he's finished, too old. Let's try someone else. But while if an 18 or 19-year-old goes on and he doesn't play that well, look, he's only young, we'll give him another chance. So I think you take every game as it is. I think Sheedy's probably right. You look at it in training, you give lads loads of opportunities. Every night is an opportunity to pretty much sell yourself as an intercounty player to the selectors and to the management to prove that you're still good enough to be there. And that goes from your attitude to being on time to every single drill, and everything is taken into account. And then when you perform in the A versus B's or the training games, there's no argument. Like, there's no one saying, well, you shouldn't be playing, you're only playing because of X. And now I understand there's another side to it where if a management is giving an older lad a lot of time off and he's only just coming back for the championship, I don't agree with that. I think if everyone's there on the same and everyone's doing the exact same work, pick your best team. You're not looking at age.
Yeah, or if a manager's too loyal to a player who's not on his top game, then there's... Listen, it's not hard to analyse, Paddy. You pick your best 15, right? And that's it. And that's why Liam Sheedy said, I see in front of my own eyes. Stop asking me the question. You pick your best 15, and there should be no real question about this.
No, do you know what? The focus shouldn't be on the older players. The focus should be on the younger players. Tipperary are lucky. They've won 2 under-20s or under-21, as we're called, All-Ireland in the last few years. They've won a minor All-Ireland. Plenty of those players that played in those teams are on that panel, right? So they have the chance. Yeah. They're there. They've got plenty of league games, plenty of substitution roles, plenty of challenge matches. club matches, everything to show, hey, come here, that lad needs to be gone. I'm better than Jamie Cannon. Get him out of there. I'm more vibrant. I'm faster. I'm stronger. I'm going to take, Mark Keogh came on the All-Ireland a couple of years ago and probably hasn't made the step up. Jake Morris is kind of on the team one day, and sometimes then he's left out of the team. He's always brought on, but probably hasn't made that real step up. Like, they're both minor and under 21 All-Ireland winners. So it is up to them to say, no, Bubbles not doing it anymore. He's not fit for every game. I'm the better option. And just right now, they're not similar. Paddy Cadell midfield has been injury prone a little bit, played a couple of good halves during the league latter end, but didn't put a whole performance together. But if he did, I'd have no doubt he'd be starting straight away because he's very, very talented. But it's a case of actually putting a couple of those performances together, because I know when I played with Tip and there probably wasn't as much talent, I knew every league game I have to perform well here, and I can hold on to the jersey, because in fairness to Liam, he always gave lads a chance.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Come here, Brian Lohan said, we were talking about this in Monday's show, this was before the Waterford game, we're very conscious of how good Waterford were at scoring goals. During the week, most of the focus was not to allow them get a soft one or to get an early goal. And, I presume we'll see a similar defensive kind of display, Connell, from Clare. Because Tipperary obviously arguably more talented and more of a threat than Waterford. And then we know Tipperary's style is play two men inside and bring one man out and crowd the middle third. So we're going to see a huge bundle of players in the middle, two men up front one side, two men up. I'm having nightmares about the Tip Cork League game.
Yeah,
we could see a defensive struggle here, though. That's the point I'm making.
I think there'll be a bit of one. I don't think Clare are going to change too much. The only thing I think they might change is position on the rise with a couple of players. Be it if O'Donnell comes back in and Kelly, I don't believe he's going to stay full forward again. But going back to your point, yeah, I don't think Clare are going to change what they're going to do. I think you're dead right in saying the Tipperary forwards are more dangerous than the Waterford forwards. I think only one Waterford forward scored from play the last day, so that's not going to happen with the quality that Tipperary have and have been producing in the last while. So that's not going to change. They're going to try and leave Conlon free again and trying to mop up and cover that D area, so there's no real leaking of goals, because that's going to be a huge part for Clare. If they don't leak goals, they have a massive chance in this game. And so they won't go away from that. Yeah.
Do you how do you see it going, Paddy? Tip are in a bad position in that they're sitting out 3 weeks without a game. Clare have beaten Kilkenny, beaten Waterford, they're flying, but Clare showed their hand last week. So Tip are in a stronger position in that regard.
I think they are, and if you were talking 2 or 3 last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you'd say 3 weeks was such a perfect amount of time before a match. But now teams seem to be playing week on week. So I suppose, look, Clare will be up to championship pace. We know they hit a lot of wides the last day. They had 14 in the first half. So you'd think they would be cut down. But the only problem is, I think Waterford would be so disappointed with their energy levels. John Conlon played as if kind of Waterford had 14 men. That much of a sweeper.
Yeah.
He didn't have to worry about anybody. And I just can't see that happening the next day. Waterford like to play a game where they break around the middle, they hand pass it, break, and then hit it into Hutchinson or Bennett. They didn't do that the last day. They were missing the Barron, they were missing Tyke the Burka, they were missing Prunty that were able to carry the ball out and implement that style, so they couldn't do that the last day either. I was very impressed with Clare, but I do think Tip will show an awful lot more steel this week. They'll have seen their style as well. I think Noel McGrath's played a lot at centre forward, and if they can do that mix of a game where they give Noel balls into space, he's so accurate, and then I do expect a bit of an aerial bombard as well, because Conor Cleary is big as a fullback. He's quite big, but Tip have 3. If they play forward, if they play Bubbles, and if they play Shamie Callan in the full forward line, or John McGraven, that all those 4 are very, very good in the air. And while 5 out of 10 high balls in can be cleared, or maybe 6 out of 10, those 3 or 4 balls that are snatched inside, they could be very, very dangerous, because the 2 Clare cornerbacks, that's probably not their biggest strength.
But are Tip not moving away from that kind of game, Paddy? They're leaving 2 inside and they're trying to give this perfect diagonal ball. Is that the way they're trying to evolve?
I don't think so, because I think they know that they mightn't get the goals if they do it that way. They had at the start of the league, but if you remember, I think it was the Galway match. The Galway match, they went back to popping him. I'm saying popping him from around midfield.
Right.
And so that you don't give Conlon time to run back and cover it off as easily as if you cleared it from your own full back line, half back line. So I do think you will see it, but you always have to know what you're playing against. And you're playing against, like, Paul Flanagan isn't inexperienced, but he still wasn't playing all the matches for Clare for the last 2 years. And then Rory Hayes looks a real tigerish, very good player, but I think more of a man marker on a small player. So if the tip corner forwards aren't overly fast, so I wouldn't be giving him what he wants, which is a low ball into the corner or Flanagan. I'd be popping him in there and just testing him out.
Yeah, who will pick up? I suppose Barry Heffernan's will pick up Tony Kelly, and the great thing about Barry Heffernan, he does a man marking job in the half back line and in the full back line. So like the tip won't be kind of cut out, with that.
No, like I think that will be interesting. Will he pick him up to start with? Will he pick him up if he's in full forward? Will he stay with him if he goes out to the half forward line? If he goes to midfield, is he still going to stay with him?
He's comfortable. Barry Heffernan's, they're lucky to have him because he's kind of comfortable everywhere.
Like I don't know, is Brendan Maher going to pick him up if he comes out?
Yeah, he's done it before too. Yeah,
I was thinking if it was me, I'd like to see maybe Barrett on him. He's tigerish, and if he moves out, then Maher will pick him up anywhere after that. I think it'd be comfortable enough. I think Brendan will be comfortable to go anywhere with him, and he has done it very well in the past. And I think if Tipperary can kind of quieten down Tony even a small little bit, that's going to go a huge way, obviously, to good. And I think Clare will be better than they were against Water. There's no way they're going to hit the 22, 23 wides again. Be it the shots straight off, or they would have had a lot of talk this week and trying to recycle the ball. If it's not 100% on or 90% on, you're in your zone. Let's keep possession and go across and get someone else on the thing. So I don't think they're going to get that many that wides again. I think they will play a little bit better, but whether they'll have enough overall for Tipperary, I'm not sure. I think they'll really want to try and get in at that Tipperary full back line with the guys that they have in Shanahan and whether O'Donnell's going to play and really get the ball into them primarily and have the runners off them and let them go at like Pádraig Maher and everything and see have they got the stomach for it again this year. So look, ultimately, I think Tip are probably a little bit too strong. Although it's very hard to judge when you haven't seen them, and I do admit that any kind of a game, be it we're talking about the Laois or the Antrim, even the Waterford game, any kind of a championship win is great for confidence and belief and everything that you're trying to do with a team. Whether they have enough, I don't think so. I think the Tip probably still have enough experience and enough quality players to probably get over this one. Okay,
fair enough. Just because I never thought of Brendan Maher, Paddy. Who do you see picking up Tony Kelly? Because I've completely forgot that Liam Sheedy loves Brendan Maher in that man marking role. Barry Heffernan was the one in my head.
Yeah, I do think at this stage you might go with Barry Heffernan. Certainly if Shane O'Donnell isn't playing, I think if he's in the full forward line, I don't think he will do that Barry could pick him up. And I think if he's on the half forward line, I think Barry Heffernan will, because it's kind of shown to be one of his strengths now. And I think Brendan Maher is such a quality player going forward, and they need his dynamism going the other way to break open the clear midfield. That I would see Barry follow him. It's mentally a tough job to go around for 70 minutes, and I think Brendan is 31 or 32 now. I'm not sure which, but there's only so long you can do that. And last time he was doing that, he was 28 or 9. He was fresh after his cruciate injury. He was buzzing for it. But there's a lot. There's mileage there, and I think if you can let a lad like Brendan go out and hurl more so his own match, I think that's more of a strength for Tip. But obviously, if Tony Kelly's given problems, he'll be put on him. But if Shane O'Donnell is playing, there could be a very good matchup then, because Shane O'Donnell and Tony Kelly inside the full forward line with Aaron Shanahan gives a serious decision for the Tip management to make, and that's what I'd be very interested. But if O'Donnell isn't there, I think it's a very easy decision to make.
Right, okay. Before we finish up, lads, I want to give a shout out to Paddy Fitzpatrick, because we were on Monday's show, left half back, and I was watching the match going, who's this lad? I've never seen him before, and he doesn't look young, and I've heard nothing about him coming up. I didn't want to show my ignorance on Monday's show by saying one of you might have said, well, he played the league the last 2 years. Anyways, there was a piece in the 42.ie. He made his first senior championship start for Clare at 30 years of age. last Sunday. And apparently he's a brilliant man marker for 6 Mile Bridge. And then I was thinking, Jesus, Davy managed Clare for 5 years. He's 6 Mile Bridge. Surely they would have given this man an old run or a championship. And he didn't. And he's made his debut at 30. A very unique thing, Paddy. Like, I mean, to play inter-county level and to be ignored even by your own club man right throughout your best years from maybe 20 to 25, and then get your debut at 30 and play well. And like, you know,
I know, yeah. I don't know. I'd say, like, I was retired at 30. It's crazy to see how we did it. But no, I liked what he was about the other day. I think, do you know what it shows? Brian Lohan as a manager, he still has that raw edge, because he knows, okay, 6 backs, I might need one of them to do a job. So he's brought him in, and I think it's a very open-minded thing to do.
Yeah.
And something I'd be interested that he's 30 years of age, he's no experience of inter-county, so we can't bring him in. No, I have a job for him to do, and I've seen him do it on county lads, and that's what he wanted. He didn't think about Paddy Fitzpatrick coming in and hurling balls to the clouds the last day. He just saw him going in there and Fagan doesn't catch a ball, and they've probably looked at how many balls he caught in last year's championship, said, no, we're taking that away from you. And he did it to the letter of the law. He mightn't even start this weekend now. Yeah. That might be his job done for the championship, you don't know. But he certainly did it well last week. And if Shamie Callan is playing at wing forward, you just might see him detailed to mark him.
He could, yeah. And like, I mean, it's interesting in that piece, because Cratloe and 6 Mile Bridge used to have a big rivalry, and he always picked up Conor McGrath. You would have thought that wouldn't have been a great matchup for this fella, but apparently he's known for being a good man marker, so he could actually pick up anybody on Sunday, or like Paddy says, he might not play at all.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, and I think credit goes to obviously Brian Lohan for bringing him in, but seriously mental strength on his behalf to keep going year after year and hope that you get that call. And like, that is tough. One of your own clubmen not picking you and him being the county manager is really tough. Like, so I don't understand that at all, because he obviously has the hurling and he obviously has the attitude right to play, and I just hope he continues his form into the next toil, and he really gives it the 2 fingers to all the previous managers that didn't pick him. I think that's what I would be working off, and really loyal to Brian for giving him a chance at that age. And again, age doesn't come into it. I keep going on about it. I wouldn't be looking into any of that. And if you're good enough, you're old enough, or regardless of your experience or not.
Exactly. I'll start off with 4 predictions. I'm going to go Galway, I'm going to go Kilkenny, I'm going to go Limerick, and I'm going to go Clare. Paddy, people like predictions, lads. What can I say? We'll have to.
Yeah, they like predictions. Sure, look, going through them there. Sure, look, I think Galway. Yeah, I'd have to go from. I think Kilkenny will beat Wexford. I think I'm going to say a tip to sneak it against Clare. I think it could be a real tough one now, to be honest. But then I can't go against Limerick until I see some real chinks in the armour. I can't go against Limerick.
Conall, finish up.
Yeah, I'll go Limerick. Definitely go with Limerick, I think, on that one. On the games in with Leinster, look, I'm going to tip Dublin, because I'd never not tip them.
You were like Cheddar. He tips Laois no matter who they're playing, and that's it. So
I think the factor that the big factor is that it's moved from Port Laois is definitely swinging in Galway's favour. And look, Galway have the form, but just going to tip Dublin for that one.
Okay. I'm Wexford Kilkenny.
I'm going to tip Kilkenny on the basis that they've been waiting a long time to get back, and I think they had a bit of a dip coming in against in the last couple of league games, and I think Cody is really drumming it into them now, and they'll be waiting for Wexford.
And then the last one, we know 2 things about you. You always tip Dublin, and you always tip against Tipperary. So Tipperary, Clare.
That goes without saying. Clare will win that one.
All right, that'll do, lads. That's all we've time for as a bumper preview this week. We'll be back on Monday, and we'll review all the games. So we'll talk to you all then. Good luck.